One of the things that they decided that they had to go after Trump on, though, which I thought was pretty funny, and you guys will let me know what you think, was the discussion when it came to the environment. And I will say this about Trump. He does seem supportive of nuclear power, which I am 1,000% supportive of. I have told you guys time and again, the only way we are getting off of coal and natural gas is with an, I suppose nuclear would be somewhat of an infinite resource, but it's certainly one that has the reach to power major cities and the surrounding areas. Wind and solar, for many reasons, are not going to be able to do that. And it's a finite resource, especially when it comes to cobalt and lithium. Unless we're looking at the salt mine opportunities, and maybe they're coming, I don't know. Nuclear is the way to go. But this is a conversation that Trump and Rogan were having pertaining to the issues that whales have related to wind turbines. This is kind of funny.
With the whales, I've read about this.
Well, they say that the wind drives them crazy. You know, it's a vibration because you have those, you know, those things that 50-story buildings, some of them.
Right, and they're 50. Super sensitive to vibrations.
They have those,
sounds.
You know, the wind is rushing, the things are blowing, it's a vibration, and it makes noise. You know what it is? I want to be a whale psychiatrist. It drives the whales freaking crazy.
So, of course, he makes a statement like this, and everybody who is on Team Blue with a major platform that is protecting Kamala and the Democratic establishment, saying Trump's a lunatic. He says I totally want to be a whale psychologist. I want to talk to these psychiatrists. I want to talk to these whales. I gonna help them. You know that he's joking. At least I think they know he's joking. I mean, they're just saying it obviously to goad him, but I thought that was. I remember when I heard, I was like, that is such a Trumpism if there ever was one.
Yes. And something happens with them, but for whatever reason, they're getting washed up on shore, and you know, and yet the environmentalists
conveniently ignored by the environmental
but the environmentalists they don't talk about it.
Right.
I think there's nothing uglier. I see it in Scotland. I see it all over the world. You have this beautiful valley. It's been there for, you know, in civilization, thousands of years, but millions of years. And all of a sudden you have these ugly windmills.
And who's to say that he's not just making the statements he's making because he takes money from big oil? You know, who's to say that that's not the reason he comes up with these excuses? But whatever the reasoning is, there are definite problems with wind and solar. There's no getting around it. Jen has said as much as well when we have discussed the issues with solar and the fact that it's not a finite resource. Lithium and cobalt and the mining that goes into getting those minerals, especially in places like the Congo, it's devastatingly bad. It's also true that you've got a huge portion of the materials that is situated in Western Ukraine. And I still maintain that that's the biggest reason why there's a war going on there in the first place. We see it as if Ukraine is in NATO, then those resources belong to us. We will get our hands on them. Russia says no, you will not. If you cross that line and you try to bring Ukraine into NATO, which brings it to our border, you're going to have a problem. And sure enough, well, a big part of it, I have no doubt, has to do with those natural resources. Very big part of it. There were many other conversations that were had. One that I thought was very, and again, I think we can piggyback on that now because of the fact that it is such a big deal. Question being, what is Trump going to do if he ultimately does win? Is he really going to change course pertaining to our foreign policy, particularly in Israel and Ukraine? Now, didn't get all the answers he wanted, but here's what he had to say.
The election was different. I would have fired, you know, all of them quickly. Most of them I did fire. Biden should have fired every military person involved with Afghanistan. He should have had a lot of firings. You know, if you look at him, he told Israel not to do anything, and at least Israel's not going to look at a bomb the way they would have been. Think if they listened to Biden, they'd be waiting for a bomb to drop on their head right now. He's been wrong about so much. I guess you'd have to say that she's been wrong too, because, you know, she always said they made the decision together. But Israel didn't follow his advice, and I think it was a very You know, the Middle East is rapidly changing. You know, there are prophets that say the world will come to an end in the Middle East. You know that, right? And we have weapons today that are so scary. When you look, I rebuilt them all. And when you look at the weapons we have today, the biggest threat we have in the world today is nuclear weapons. And we have other weapons, too, that are devastating. But the nuclear weapons, the biggest threat we have in the world today. And that's what I was talking about de-escalation with both China and Russia. I'm telling you, we were going to de-escalate. They were going to de-escalate. You got to be careful. It's a little tricky playing with them because they say we're going to do it and they don't do it, maybe. But they understood the curse, too. It's a curse. It's China's way behind us, but they'll catch us within 5 years.
So let's imagine, let's say you win in November. What do you do differently, and how do you change this course that it seems we are on for World War III? How do you get us out of Ukraine? How do you stop what's going on in the Middle East? How do you put a stop to this?
Well, it's a very to me, it's an easy question because I think I can do it easily, but it's a complex question in the sense that the times change. Every day changes. Who's winning, who's not winning? I mean, Russia's a war machine. Whether you like it or not, it just grinds along. You speak to people like Viktor Orban, he'll tell you it's just a big, fat war machine, and that's what's happening. You look at what's happened to Ukraine. If I were there, it would have never happened.
But what could you do now? If you get into office in January, what could you do now? Right
now, you would get both of them. I know both very well. And again, I do not want to tell you, for the purpose of looking smart to 5 people that say, oh, he was great. Because if I told you exactly what I do, I could never make the deal. All I can tell you is that I would meet with Putin and I would meet with him, and I know exactly what I'd say to each one of them. And I believe that as president-elect, I would get that war stopped, and stopped fast. We have tremendous power in the United States if you know how to use the power.
Yeah, that's saying nothing. That's saying nothing without, that's saying everything without saying nothing. I think that's how you say it. Listen, I'm going to stop it. It's going to be great. I can't tell you how I'm going to do it, but I'm totally going to do it. I'm going to bring Putin and that other guy, Zelensky. We're going to bring them together. We're going to sing Kumbaya. I'm going to tell him, you get this, he gets that, and that'll be the end of it. And that's what's going to happen. One thing he did say, which he's not wrong about, is that Russia is one of the 3 global superpowers. And that is what is going to happen. You're going to have to find a way to mitigate the violence. Russia has told the world what their red line is, and the U.S. crossed it. And I think Trump has a little bit more sense because he is an outsider and he doesn't really, he's not a guy who just is like, oh, well, what do I have to do to advance my career in D.C.? It's not about that. But I do think that he sees himself as like a kingmaker of sorts. I don't know what to expect, but I know that people are more fearful of his cowboy-like attitude because he doesn't just go along with the establishment. And that's the real danger that they see with him being in power.
I stopped other wars just by the use of tariffs. I got Macron of France. Good guy, like a friend of mine, but he's a wise guy. And he's a person that likes France, and he was going to tax our companies. I say, and I sent all the smartest guys. I sent Mnuchin, they all failed me. And I said, I'll do it myself. And I called him. I said, Emmanuel, you're taxing American companies. We're not going to allow you to do that. Oh, Donald, I cannot do it. Nothing I could do. It's already been passed. I said, Emmanuel, if you do that, I'm going to put 100% tariff on your wines and champagnes that come into the United States, and you're going to regret that you ever did it. He said, Donald, please, that's not fair. Anyway, within about 2 minutes, he dropped the whole thing.
Now, whether or not that's true, Trump has one hell of a way of just basically saying, I'm going to play Russian roulette and see if this is going to work or if it's not going to work. But I would say he does, without question, shoot from the hip. And that has been his mark on foreign policy. But the one thing I I've been saying, and I will still say now, and I do think that this will play a heavy hand in his foreign policy decision making should he win in 10 days, is simply this. He wants that Nobel Prize. I think he really wants that. I want my Nobel Prize. It's very important to me. Well, if it's that important to you, let me tell you, you end the war in Ukraine, you end the genocide in Gaza, you're not just going to get a Nobel Prize. They'll be building statues of you all over the place. That sounds really great. I think we should do it. Let's totally do it. Great idea.